Hey everyone, it's Emily Fox. Today's video is going to be all about nonfiction books because I feel like they're a little bit too underrated in mainstream booktube. So I wanted to rave about them and I thought, why not do the nonfiction book tag? So I'm going to answer the questions. Feel free to answer them also in the comment section because I'm curious about some of your answers. And let's just get into it. Question number one. How much nonfiction do you read? I feel like it has changed over the years. I feel like a couple years ago it was like maybe 5 a year, but I was trying to really focus on like really difficult ones, quite frankly. And then 2, 3 years ago in 2022, I made it a challenge that I wanted to read more. And I ended up reading like over 30 in 1 year. Kind of crazy. Last year, I think I was at like a dozen, and I feel like I'm kind of looking like I'm going to do the same thing this year. 1 a month, I think, is a really good average. I would love to read more, but yeah, this year has just not been the best year in terms of that. I think brain power needs to be there to read nonfiction, and it's just not been there. It's not been there. It's okay. I mean, 1 a month, I'm really happy with it. But yeah, I feel like I have so many on my list that I want to read. I just haven't had the mental capacity for it. So number two, what kind of nonfiction videos do you make or do you want to make on BookTube? I haven't done a ton, but I've started doing more and more as I'm reading more of them. Back in the day, I had done one about like some of my favorite ones, and I want to do more, especially like beginner-friendly ones. I want to recommend more of those because I feel like, again, BookTube doesn't tend to recommend as much nonfiction as other genres. And the last 2 years, like I said, I was trying to read more of them. So at the end of the year, I would do a video reviewing all of the ones that I have read, which those videos, the first one was definitely popular. So if you want to see that, I reviewed like 30 of them in one video. It was a lot, but I think it kind of shows you what I do enjoy and gives you an idea of what I want to read and what you could want to pick up too. It was a good mix of like really popular ones and then just topics that I found interesting. So I definitely want to do more of those too. I'm going to keep doing one a year, and then I'm going to do Claudia is yelling at my door. This is the beast. I can't film anytime she just yells. Closed doors are unacceptable in this house. So yeah, I want to do more beginner-friendly ones because I feel like, again, it's a genre that can be a bit intimidating. So if there's anything else you would like to see, definitely let me know. Number three, what's your favorite subgenre of nonfiction? Okay, I feel like I've been going through phases. 2 years ago, when I read like 30, like 5 of them were about like medical misogyny specifically, or like transphobia. Like it was definitely a mix of things that were close to what I was going through, and I really enjoyed it. Obviously, I still want to read a couple of those, but I have kind of... Girl, what are you doing? I'll put some on the screen that I've enjoyed so you can check those out. But yes, it was definitely something I went through a little phase, still a topic that I'm interested in, but I'm not reading as many. I'm obviously interested in reading about feminism, racism, homophobia, transphobia. Those are just topics that I find important. But at the moment, I feel like I'm focused on testing different subgenres and trying to figure out what I like and what I don't like. Like recently, I tried the ones about like not book thief, like art thief, and honestly, I found it really boring. I'm really not into like crimes either. Like those are just not for me. I've tried them. That was, the phase I'm going through, trying a bunch of different ones, and those ones were not for me. And I've enjoyed more like health related ones so far. I'm also not into like self-help unless they're like proper medical ones, if that makes sense. Like I don't like the money grabbing ones, you know what I mean? Or the religious ones. Really not my jam. I'm not into like history, World War II history ones, like not my thing. I feel like it's almost easier to tell you what I'm not into. So I'm really not into those. I'll put on the screen some of the ones that I've been reading. Kind of gives you a little bit of an idea what I mean, but like just trying a few different things, and it's going well so far. I'm enjoying myself, but I'm still kind of trying to figure out exactly what I want to read more about. But yes, definitely not those, and more of this. Number four, do you have a nonfiction favorite? I hate choosing favorite. That is like the bane of my existence. But I'm going to put some on the screen that I have really enjoyed that I would recommend. I'll link all the videos that I was talking about and will be talking about in this video in the description box. I have a playlist for nonfiction so you can get more, but if you have any questions about any of the ones you've seen, obviously ask me and I can answer you in the comment section. But those are some of the ones that I've really enjoyed and that I would recommend. But yeah, don't ask me for one. I can't do that. Question number 5, we're going to go on a rant here. What do you think keeps people from wanting to read nonfiction books? Okay, multiple things. First off, some of you do feel like it just makes you feel like back to school in a bad way. You don't want to do that. You find it boring, which fair enough. I disagree, but like fair enough. You don't want to read those. I know a lot of people tend to associate them also with, let's be real, okay? Like the really popular ones, again, for women, they tend to be like self-help relationship, like straight relationship, like very specifically, or like work on yourself, you're the problem kind of vibe. And I feel like the other ones tend to be targeted a lot more towards men. The self-help ones also, and like finance ones, which are all jammed together, and like anything to make you believe that like if you don't wake up at 4 in the morning, you're a worthless piece of that vibe, which really not for me also. Or like again, the really financial ones that will bring you to ruin, like, oh, invest in crypto and anyway, which like obviously that's not going to make you want to read about nonfiction. It doesn't make me want to read about nonfiction either. But also, even as someone posting videos, I think the audience, like the people that do read a lot of nonfiction and like say it loudly, they tend to be these kind of people too. And it shows in my comment section and like other people comment section, and it doesn't make me want to read or just pursue nonfiction finding ones because I have to read these stupid comments. And like it plays into the way you see it, I feel like. You know what? I'm going to give you an example, but I have to answer a future question to do that. So let's go through 7 for a second. It's what's a nonfiction book you've read because of Booktube? I wanted to mention 2 because you have The Immortal Life of NVLX, because I read that because of Booktube. It was one of the first nonfictions that I had been seeing going around that I read that I really enjoyed. And it's like a journalistic kind of book. You have this journalist that goes to interview the descendants of NVLX. Her cells were taken when she was being examined by this doctor. She was a Black woman in the US and she had cancer. I think it's cervix. I'll confirm. But she had this very fast growing cancer, and they took her cells and they're still used to this day to make a lot of research. You've probably heard of Ella cells if you've worked in healthcare or done some research. She wasn't recognized for it. She didn't get any money. Her family, at the time of the book at least, had not received anything. And yeah, just awful story. And it was a very interesting book. And another one that I read because of Booktube that was in my first, that's why I'm mentioning that, best nonfiction that I've read video was Radium Girls, which, so you know how I said I don't really like history? This is kind of my type of exception. So you have these women who were painting clocks and watches with radium paint at the time, and they were using like these brush, they would put them in their mouth to get them really pointy to paint. So it's also like workers' right, feminism, all of that stuff, history. And turns out, obviously, we know now that radium is not great for us. And I would have been sucked into buying something because I love glow in the dark stuff. But yes, they started getting sick. So again, healthcare. And you follow their story, and it's absolutely awful. It almost reads like fiction because it's so awful, and the company trying to hide, like, it's, again, fantastic book. This author in general is great too. So I was mentioning these 2 specific book in that best nonfiction that I've read so far, and I got so many comments from men saying you should have specified in your title that these were nonfiction recommendation for women. Because the first 2 books I mentioned were about women. Like, I just talking about it, I get pissed all over again because, like, are you serious? And it reminds you that, like, it's not just nonfiction, obviously, but I feel like it's extra bad for nonfiction. But even when you're children, you hear that female authors will use, like, pen names or, like, just use their initials on the cover. And even little boys will not read a book if the main character is not a boy. So, like, it's prevalent, like misogyny, obviously. But I feel like, again, nonfiction is extremely bad. I've gotten so many comments that these are for women. Like, why would I read that? Like, ugh. Anyway, so yeah. So that's why I don't really blame people for associating nonfiction with a bunch of negative stuff, because I don't really disagree with that point. I still want to do these videos. Like, it's not stopping me, but I do have that in the back of my mind every time because I know I'm going to have to start blocking a bunch of people, which, like, fair enough, but, like, it's annoying. Okay, let's go back to number 6, which is why do you like nonfiction? I like to learn. That's what I was mentioning. I know some people find it boring and like associated with school, but I've always been someone that loved school. And you might not know this about me, but like I love everything. Which is a problem when you go to school. So like I live in Quebec, so we go to Cégep before university. So we do 2 years, and they're basically considered university classes. And I did it in natural sciences. So I did my 3 maths, 3 physics, 3 chemistry, and 2 biology classes. Like, I love science. And then I did a bachelor in communication French literature. And then I did civil law. So I like everything, and it's really hard to pick. So I feel like through nonfiction, I get to still learn a bunch of stuff, and I just find it really fascinating. So I like it, and that's why I want to try to convince everyone to also explore it more. But yes, I feel like personally, I started reading more when I released myself from the expectation of the ones I'm supposed to be reading. Which I feel like people feel like that also in general with books. They feel like they have to read the classics and they can only go through like one a year because they don't find them that interesting. Also, eventually you just move on and realize you can have fun with reading in general. So same thing with nonfiction. Once I moved on from that and started exploring different things, I started reading more of them. Number 8, what's the best nonfiction book you've read lately? Okay, so I wanted to recommend this one as the best one I've read this year, the one that I think the masses would like. I want more people to enjoy nonfiction. I feel like that's a really good example of like introduction into a topic, but also fun, and it's quackery, A Brief History of the Worst Way of Curing Everything, I think. I really enjoyed this nonfiction book, and I think a lot of people would too. It's like 63, 67 different kind of ways that doctors use to try and cure illnesses and just killing their own patients. And like, oh, rat poison. Yeah, that will fix it. That will fix it. So I thought this was really engaging. You learn new things. The physical books has a bunch of pictures, but the audiobook is also really fascinating because the tone of the book is kind of humorous. I thought it was a really good balance between all of these things. So it's again extremely beginner friendly, and it reminded me of one of the best ones that I've read. Was it a year or two ago? Whichever, the one about poison. If you're someone that likes crime novels, I feel like this is again a perfect like mix for you because you have these different poison and then you get a story of how it was used once, like popular, famous story, and then how it works. So I feel like again, it's a good balance of like being interesting. It's nonfiction, but it's again super appealing for most people. So I am trying to read more of these, trying different topics, and it's definitely something that I found interesting. And I've read a few books about like diseases and stuff because again, I'm enjoying it. Number 9, what are some of your nonfiction reading goals? Okay, I definitely want to continue trying different topics because again, it's been working for me and I want to eventually explore those like deeper, which I'm kind of working on that a little bit, but I think it's fun to, like I said, the medical ones, like reading like 5 of them and then telling you, okay, out of all of these, this is the one that you should pick up because not everyone has a ton of time to read. So like kind of telling you which ones are definitely worth your time. And I want to try to read at least one a month on average. I would like to read more, like I said, but it's been a rough year, so it's fine. I'm enjoying myself. Overall, I've enjoyed most of the ones that I have read. I've also been learning to put down books when I'm not enjoying them, so that's helping in terms of enjoying most of the ones that I finish, but maybe not for the amount, but that's okay. I would rather read less books and enjoy more of them. Number 10, what's your advice on reading more of them? I did a little portion of that first video that I keep mentioning, 30 books, dedicating to that, but I'm going to summarize it here because again, I think it's a great way to add more nonfiction to your life. First thing that I did was try more audiobooks. If you like audiobooks, I feel like that method is going to work extra well, but it doesn't have to. What I did is I went on my 2 library. I have 2 library, when I pay, when it's free, and I went through all their nonfiction online. Through Libby, you can have ebooks or audiobooks, but you can do it with their physical content too if you want to. And I put all the ones that I was interested in on a wish list. And then I went through those and then put some that I really wanted to read on my waiting list and started reading those. And it can be intimidating to have, 30 books to go through that year, but I feel like it gives you options. If you're a mood reader, I think it really is helpful, but always having a couple next ones makes you just go through them faster because one, you already know what to pick up and there's less waiting. My next tip is to go for the shorter ones first. So the shortest audiobook I think I went through for nonfiction this year was 3.5 hours. So it's extremely short, but you can definitely find some that are like 5, 6, 7, 8 hours. I feel that's usually about the shortest ones you'll find, and you just go through them faster. So it's motivating. You get to try different topics because let's be real, going through a 30-hour audiobook can be daunting. So try the shorter ones first. And then specifically for audiobooks, I think it's really useful because you can do other things. Again, not everyone has time to sit down and just focus on the book. So when you're going on walks, cleaning, showering, whatever you're doing, you can always listen to an audiobook. So you can try to go through more nonfictions that way. At least it works really well for me because fiction you have to listen to a little bit. Otherwise you start getting confused if you only listen to 5 minutes here and there, right? But nonfiction, usually you can do that. It's not a problem. And then a specific tip that works for me really well with physical books is to give myself a specific amount that I want to read every day. I mean, that could work for ebooks too, but let's say 5, 10 pages, a chapter, whatever you choose. And I try to make it a habit and read it every day. So one best way to do that is habit stacking. Read that in multiple books, actually. And you just associate your new habit to an old one. So for example, every time you're drinking your morning coffee, you read your 5 pages. That's it. Or it could be lunchtime. You know, you just add it to your schedule, your routine, something you already do every day. It could be, okay, every night I go to bed at 9 so I can read. So I start by reading my 5 pages of nonfiction and then I can read some fiction books. Giving myself that goal usually works really well for me. Again, that's what I did the year I was reading 30, and I haven't been really well with being consistent since, but while I was doing it, it was great. So I definitely would recommend that. Having a list, using your library, audiobooks if possible, and like giving yourself a specific routine. So these were the questions for the nonfiction book tag. I hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know in the comment section your answers and what kind of videos you would like to see more about nonfiction. Like I said, I am planning one about like a beginner friendly one because I want to convert everyone to nonfiction. Obviously, if you're watching this video, you probably already are interested, but still, doesn't hurt to try a little bit. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thumbs up, subscribe. I will be putting some of the nonfiction books videos that I was mentioning. So the one about the 30-something book that I read in 2022, and then the first favorite nonfiction books I had read on Booktube and would recommend that apparently are only for women. So, bye.